Venture to guess how the market will handle what is still very apparently a hot war with Iran come Monday's opening bell.
Well, listen, if we continue to get headlines like this over the next 2 days, I suppose Monday might be a down day, might be a difficult day, especially if it gets worse than the headlines that you've just relayed to everybody, right? If they don't find this pilot, if they shoot down another plane. And look, it's the holidays. You know this as well as I do. It's Passover around the world. It's Passover in Israel. It's Easter here in the Christian part of the world. And so it's a perfect weekend. If Iran really wants to turn the temperature up, this would be the perfect weekend to do it. And I think that's some of the anxiousness that went into last week and yesterday as we moved into the weekend. So yeah, it's a little bit skittish, and if it stays like this, then I suspect Monday is going to be kind of a difficult day.
Yeah, and by the way, there is another headline coming through via the Wall Street Journal. Mediators are saying that the latest effort to reach a ceasefire between Israel, the U.S., and Iran have hit a dead end. This current round, of course, was made by regional countries, these mediators led by Pakistan, to hopefully reach some type of ceasing of the fighting between the U.S. and Iran, and it apparently is not working. We understand, though, that the market really begins to become not inured to this kind of news, especially when a U.S. jet is shot down. But nonetheless, the market has, could you say, held up relatively well? It's of course, has to deal with the wave of bad headlines regarding oil prices.
Yeah, I think overall, considering the market has held up well, and look, you saw it the other day when they thought the headlines were positive and there was an end in sight and Iran wanted to make a deal. You saw what happened to the market. Investors went piling right back in. Traders that had gotten out of the market were rushing to get back in. And so you can feel that it wants to go higher, but it's still anxious. And look, the headlines like what you're reading today, and if they continue tomorrow and into Sunday, are certainly going to create more angst. If it doesn't, if it suddenly over the next 2 days settles down, then we'll see the market settle down. And like I said, I think once we get through this, the market is going to rally. But it's that anxiety right now that's this anxiety-producing headlines right now that are going to hold the market in check.
Massive rally yesterday, Dan. Stocks are kicking off April with more green. What's your call here? Are the lows in, or do we still have more downside ahead?
I tell you, Caroline, I think the first test for this market's going to be the moving averages, particularly that 200-day moving average, which is floating about 1% above the market right now when you look at the S&P and the NASDAQ. And I think that I could see us going up and challenging that, but I think that it's going to be a little hesitation before we see any meaningful push higher. As again, even though we're seeing commodity prices coming down, particularly crude, for the short term, I think at these elevated levels, some of the damage is going to linger for an extended period of time. And I think it's going to be a challenge in the second quarter for the market to push to new highs.
So hard to push to new highs, but we have an S&P 500 that's about 6% off the highs. But how should we be thinking about the lows? Because we're quite a bit off the lows, right? Do you see more downside in store then?
I think there's a potential that we could test the recent lows here before we find a meaningful bottom. And again, it's dependent on some of the dynamics in the market. Certainly the situation in the Middle East is driving the price action right now to a large extent. And, that uncertainty, even if it gets resolved, I think the lingering impact here, as it's extended probably longer than what the market had anticipated, is going to continue to be a disruptive factor moving forward, particularly in the supply chain, Caroline. I think that that's being underestimated at this point, that there's damage that it's going to linger into the summer, keep inflation elevated. And I think we're also seeing the labor market soften. I think it's going to continue to soften. So those are two major headwinds for the market from a valuation standpoint and a pricing structure standpoint that not necessarily lend itself to a potential for new highs until I think we see maybe a little bit more consolidation here near the lower end of this range.
Dan, do you do price targets? Do you have a price target for the S&P by year end?
I mean, we're still optimistic that it's going to break to new highs, but I think it's going to be later in the year. I think, the short-term price target right now for me is 66.39 in the S&P. That's that 200-day moving average. That's about 1% above where we are. That's going to be, I think, a critical level. If we drift back up there, if we get back above there and find some meaningful momentum in the market, then maybe then the bottom, technically the bottom's in. But I think that right now, Caroline, when you look at the short-term aspects of the market, that 200-day moving average, both in the S&P and the NASDAQ, are critical for this market moving forward.
Okay, let's talk about some specific sectors of the market. Energy, of course, has been the best performing sector so far this year, with oil prices just below $100 a barrel right now. Is that too crowded at this point, or is there still opportunity there? How are you thinking about energy?
To me, it's a little crowded. Again, if we see an extended period in the tensions in the Middle East, and particularly shipping and transportation through the Strait, continue to be challenged, then if crude does break out to new highs, then certainly energy is going to follow and the energy stocks are going to follow. But at this point, hovering around this $100 level, it does appear that it's found, at least for some short-term, equilibrium. And if we do see a resolution in the next month, let's say, and we do see some softening of the tensions between the shipping in and out of the Strait, that eventually that will certainly have an impact. Again, I think longer term, that's going to, from a short-term perspective, I think it's still going to have an impact over the next quarter. Longer term, it will get worked through the system. But I think, looking at it right now, Caroline, energy does feel a little crowded. I think there's other sectors where we're seeing relative strength that don't necessarily get the attention that they need.
Dan, is there a level for oil that the market essentially needs to be able to move meaningfully higher? Because I think that despite the fact that it is well off the highs, it's still up 70% year to date, U.S. crude is. So at what point does oil need to get to see a sustainable market rally?
I guess it's really a perception. I mean, certainly $100 from a psychological standpoint, I think is a critical level. I think it probably needs to get to about $80, Caroline, for it to be meaningful as far as shifting the expectations and the impact on the inflation front moving forward. So really, I think when we kind of evaluate it, to us, I think $80 the market can digest that for at least for a short period of time. And a build off of that, if it holds above there for an extended period of time, I think that's going to raise the inflation parallel pretty much across the board. And that's going to be a challenge for the Fed moving forward. And that's going to have an impact, I think, as far as expected valuations and the potential impact on the economy moving forward.
So we have energy at one end of the spectrum, and then we have tech, which has been one of the weakest areas of the market so far this year. How are you looking at that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a real unwind of the AI trade, or are investors just rotating into other parts of the market and they'll come back soon?
I think it's a rotation, Caroline, because if you look at how this market's reacted, if you look at like equal weighted strategies, even if you look at the Russell, up on the year, equal weight strategies up on the year by and large. So to me, that's a rotation, because even though you're seeing significant damage in the tech sector, certainly looking at Microsoft being featured, worst quarter since 2008, now a valuation level below the S&P. So you've seen some significant damage there this last quarter, but yet the market's really not off all of that much relative to the damage that we've seen in the Mag 7. So to me, it's more about a rotation going into some areas where it's been defensive. Certainly energy has picked up some of that slack. But if you're looking at other areas in the market, certainly materials continue to hold up well, utilities holding up well, as well as biotech. And even in the tech sector, in its own little area there, well, not little, it's large, but the semiconductor area has weathered the storm.
The key thing to focus on that's been the focus of this conflict is the Strait of Hormuz. On a normal time, you get about 20 million barrels per day of crude going through here. Right now, that's fallen to roughly 2 million barrels per day. Most of that is Iranian crude that the regime is using to fund itself. Now, with that shut off, what are the options? You have a few. Right through here, you have the Fujairah pipeline through the UAE. That can hold about 2 million barrels per day. Right. You also have the Kirkuk pipeline up here that comes to the Mediterranean Sea with a capacity of about 200,000 barrels per day. This pipeline here are both closed off. Your best option, however, is this pipeline right along here through Saudi Arabia, the east-west pipeline. Now, back in the 80s, the Saudis built this pipeline with this exact situation in mind, fearing that someday someone could close off the Strait of Hormuz and they would need a way to get oil out to the world anyway. Right now, this is running at a full capacity of about 7 million barrels per day to the Red Sea. About 4 million barrels per day can go down here through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and about 2.5 of that can come up through the Suez Canal and the Sumed pipeline. You saw last weekend the Houthis, a terrorist proxy group based in Yemen down here, funded by Iran, saying they were formally entering the conflict. The problem is that they could threaten the security of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. If that proxy group was to close off security and safety through this key passageway, you lose 4 million barrels per day of the 7 million barrels coming across here. Up here leaves maybe 2 million barrels per day. Through the Fujairah pipeline right here, you've got maybe 2 million barrels per day. Up here is maybe 200,000. So again, you're still looking at a massive deficit to come.
So walk us through this, where we are now within oil exports over the past month.
On a normal day, you see the 20 million barrels per day going through the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, you can see here through March, this has all been relatively flat at maybe 1.5 million, 2 million barrels per day. Again, most of that is Iran's own oil, but now they've said to a few countries they see as more friendly, India, Pakistan, China, that for exorbitant fees, we will let you move a small amount of oil through there. That is still very small capacity, but it's a signal of what Iran wants to do here. They want control. They want economic and security-based control of the Strait of Hormuz. And if the U.S. pulls out of the Strait and leaves that to Europe to solve, that's going to be blocked for longer, which means the market is going to stay tighter. And all of these exit routes, the Fujairah pipeline, the East-West pipeline, the Kirkuk-Ceyhan pipeline, and the Sumed pipeline, they are all already at capacity. This is the biggest disruption we've seen on record. There is nothing in the history books that compares us to this moment.
So when do you expect money to start flowing back into other areas of tech that have been pretty beaten down, including the Mag 7?
Yeah, I think that we're getting pretty close, honestly, Caroline. I mean, when you see, certainly when you see the VIX going up to this mid-20 level, it's been highlighted that this has been a very orderly decline in the last month. But looking at those big names, particularly when you have the focus on Microsoft, the worst quarter since 2008, to me, that's a headline that tells you basically, okay, maybe we're nearing a bottom here for some of these names, particularly in the software area. So I think that there's going to be opportunity here in this quarter to look at some of these beaten down names and rotate back into them. So I think that, overall, that's areas that we're focused on moving into the second quarter. If we do see continued weakness, that eventually we do feel that there'll be a valuation level there where it's going to be compelling to increase exposure to some of those areas.
What areas look attractive to you right now? What's on your shopping list, Dan?
Right now, utilities. I think that's one area because we still have a great deal of uncertainty surrounding the interest rate environment. I think, when you look at relative strength, the materials area is another area where you have some names that are holding up pretty well. When you get into the tech sector, semiconductors is still the area of strength, and I think that that's going to continue to be a theme even as we move through this transition and from out of other tech areas. But again, semiconductors are a sector that's held up very well in this rotation in the market.
We have gold that's pulled back pretty sharply in March. It's down about 15% from the highs. Is that a dip you would buy?
I think eventually, yes. I think you're looking at gold and silver coming off, now trading back down to the levels where they basically began the year, and taking out some of that froth and some of the, again, the rotation that took place based on the concerns of the conflict breaking out, and some of that's now coming out. The dollar certainly is having an impact there too, as well as interest rates. Now, rates appear to, at least for the short term, have peaked. Now, we'll see how the Fed manages this shifting dynamic between inflation and labor markets in the next couple of months and even into the next quarter as to how they're going to interpret and, I guess, talk about how their policy is going to be moving forward. Are cuts still possible? Now, we did have some dialogue in the last few days that cuts still could be possible later in the year. So that's shifting the tone a little bit. And if that's the case, then in theory, that should benefit gold and silver, particularly gold. So I do think that longer term, I still think that gold's something that should be held as a diversification type of holding in a balanced portfolio.
Okay, so Dan, bringing it back to where this market could be headed, if the war was out of the picture or does have a resolution relatively soon, President Trump had said we could be out of Iran in a few weeks. That seems to be, kind of reigniting optimism in the market today. Yeah. If that is behind us and we do see oil prices come down, can you make the case that this is a market that is fundamentally solid enough to move higher from here?
I think you can make that case. Now, yes, I do think you can make that case. And certainly we still think that the market's going to be higher at the end of the year. Now, as far as what the price target is, I think there's too many variables out there to really pick a level. But I think there's short-term damage. We still expect it to last through the second quarter. Again, because of the disruption to the supply chain. I think that the inflation is going to be underestimated for the next several months, and that's going to have a lingering impact as far as valuations and expectations for the market. However, moving in the second half of the year, if we do see this work its way through, some clarity coming back into the market, some of the uncertainty work its way out of the market, that there's an opportunity for this market to continue to find higher price action. I think the one thing that is very interesting that you highlighted just previously is that you've got the big names that have led this market the last couple of years really coming under pressure, really in the fourth quarter of last year and then more so in the first quarter of this year. And yet the market really isn't down all that much. I mean, we touched into what they call bear territory briefly, whatever the 9-10% decline. But overall, now that we bounced off that, we're really only down about 4.5% for the year in the S&P. Given the fact that we've seen tremendous damage in those names, to me, that bodes well longer term for the market.
Yeah, I saw an interview on CNBC with Warren Buffett yesterday, and he basically was like, S&P down 7% from the highs. This is nothing. He likes down 50% to put money to work. So I do think that perspective is important. But given the fact that you don't necessarily think that the volatility is behind us yet, what should investors actually be doing right now? Should they be leaning more defensive? Should they still be putting money to work right now?
I think that, you can do both. Honestly. So I think that there are opportunities. I think that it should be somewhat defensive in the thought process as far as the allocation. Again, a broad spectrum is something that we certainly are believe in as far as when we construct portfolios, and equal weight is another theme that we focus on when we construct portfolios. So there's an opportunity here to find some equal weight type of exposure in the market and counterbalance maybe, if you've had areas that have sold off, like for example, let's take IGV. Okay, certainly it's suffered severely this quarter, and that's holding those big names that have underperformed. Now, again, there's a chance here longer term to potentially rebalance. Again, this is a longer term outlook, not short term. There still could be some damage for IGV and those big names over the next quarter. But you're seeing, you're picking up some of these really strong, historically strong names at what appear to be discounted levels. So, there's opportunities here to look to pick up some of the beaten down names, going into the second half of this year. And again, and technically increase your exposure, but also kind of rotate it out of some of the areas that maybe have outperformed, which